In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an automation that scrapes Twitter for mentions of your company and sends any customer complaints directly to you in Slack so that you can jump into the conversation and take care of the issues. So we're going to be using Apify. I'm running this right now. And inside of Gumloop to scrape Twitter, I'm using Lemon Squeezy as the example company here. And you can see it's scraping, it's categorizing the text, it's filtering all of the conversations, and then eventually it's going to use AI to send the output, meaning the tweets and the tweet URLs, directly into Slack so we can get an idea of what people are saying about our company on Twitter. So you can see it's sent the Slack message here. I'm going to hop into Slack right over here, and you can see it sent the message directly into Slack. I'm going to hop into Slack right over here, and you can see the users are reporting issues with Lemon Squeezy. One criticizes their payout system, and another complains about receiving abandoned cart emails months after visiting the page. So it's going to give you a summary of the complaints, and then you can open up the links directly in Twitter if you want to jump into the conversation and respond. So again, the use case here is you're a company, you sell a product, you sell a service, and if people are saying bad things or they're complaining about you on Twitter, you want to be able to be alerted to those conversations so your customer support team can hop in there as quickly as possible and resolve the issues. So let me give you a high-level overview of what we're building. So I'm using Gumloop for this automation. I find it has the best user interface. It's the best automation builder that uses AI for non-coders, and I'm not a coder. So let me give you, again, an overview of what we're doing, and then I'll show you how to build it out. So we're going to be using a third-party scraper called Apify to scrape Twitter and look for tweets on a certain account. So Gumloop does have a new Twitter integration directly, but I'll explain later on why we're not going to use that. So we are going to be using Apify. So we're going to build an actor inside of Apify. I'll show you how to do this. And then we're going to link up to that actor over here. And that's going to be the basis on where we're getting all of these scraped information on Twitter. Then we're going to do a little bit of text manipulation, and we're going to send that output to an AI agent over here that's going to categorize the tweets, right? Because not all of the tweets mentioning the company are going to be bad. So for this example, we're going to have AI ingest all of the tweets and then categorize them into 3 buckets. I've got customer complaints, which the ones we're going to be responding to, positive feedback, and then just general discussion. And then we're going to use another AI agent, an AI filter, to take in just the customer complaints for the purposes of this video. I mean, you could certainly do something with the positive information as well, but for this video, we're just going to look at the complaints. So we're going to use this AI filter node to filter out just the complaints. And then we're going to use another AI node, this time an AI summarizer, that's going to take all of the complaints and create a big summary of what people are saying. Then we're going to do a little more text and list manipulation inside of Gumloop just to get the formatting right. And then eventually we're going to feed that output, which is going to include a summary of the issue. In other words, what are people complaining about? And we're going to send that information along with the link to the actual tweet, like up here. And that's going to go directly into a Slack channel. So maybe you have a customer support Slack channel and you want to send these complaints directly to Slack. So your customer support team can hop into the conversation, and we can set this to trigger kind of whenever we want, once a day, once an hour, however you want, so you get notified in Slack. All right, so let's build this out in Gumloop. Again, there's a lot of AI automation builders out there. Gumloop is one of my favorites because the user interface is really nice, and it's really good for people who do not know anything about how to code, and that is me. So I'm going to start by clicking a new flow. So Gumloop has a new Twitter scraper integration that we're actually not going to use, and I'll tell you why. I did try running this originally Now, you need to use the Twitter API in order to run the native Twitter scraper. The issue is that if you sign up for a free account, Twitter caps you at just 100 credits per month, and you can run through that really, really quickly, like in one run, and then you're out. And after that, for the API, I think you have to pay like $200 per month. So while I'm glad that Gumloop has the integration with the Twitter API, it's not really at this point usable because you don't get a ton of credits on the free plan. So instead of using the Twitter scraper, we're going to use a different integration called Apify, which is basically a collection or a store or a marketplace of custom web scrapers. It's really powerful and it's really easy to use. So I'm going to be using Apify integrated with my Gumloop integration. So when I go to start my new workbook, I'm actually going to search for Apify. Okay, and we're going to select this task runner over here. Now, of course, to use the Apify integration, you need an Apify account. You do need a paid account, at least to test out the API, and you're going to need to connect your Apify API key in Gumloop. So in Gumloop, you can set your credentials in your profile just by going to View Personal Settings, go to Credentials, and you can add your credentials over here. So you'll need to add your Apify credentials. All right, so we need to configure this in Apify first before we can really connect it into Gumloop. So in the Apify store, which you can see I'm over here, we're going to search for, let's say, Twitter. Okay, so when I search for Twitter, we get all of these different scrapers. Now, the one that I'm going to be using is this one that has over 12,000 users, which is this Tweet Scraper version 2. So I want you to click into that. All right, now that you're inside of the scraper in Apify, I just want to show you how to configure it. There's a lot of fields and a lot of options, but we're just going to set 2 search terms and then clear out everything else. Okay, so again, in this example, I'm just randomly using Lemon Squeezy, which is, I think, a payment processing company like a Stripe competitor. So we want to search for terms that people are using to discuss the company. All right, so the start URLs, you're going to leave blank. And this is where you're going to really enter the data, which is search terms. So, you just do this by clicking the add button here, and it's going to add a new term there. So I just have this set up for 2 different searches. One is the company name, which is Lemon Squeezy. So that's number 1. And the second search term is the @ right? So the handle, and that's it. Okay. And then everything else here is blank. Okay. All of this is blank. Now, what you probably will have to do, which is really annoying, when you first open this query wizard, chances are it's going to be pre-populated with just sample data, which you don't want any of it. So I had to come in here, like literally every single field, I had to come in and delete it. Every single field, I double clicked and I deleted, even including the dates, because we don't want any of this information, right? So your Apify page, everything should be blank except the search terms where you want to add the company name and the company handle. All right, now that we have it configured, what we need to do for Gumloop is run this as a task. I'll show you, right? So it says in order to fetch all task fields, the task must have been run at least once. So in other words, for Gumloop to be able to fetch all of the data that Apify is scraping, we need to run it one time in Apify. So what you want to do is, and I've done this a few times, is hit this create task button. Okay. And then you want to rename this. So I'm just going to call this Tweet Scraper demo. I'm going to hit continue. And now you can see it says after task created. Okay. So when I go into when I go into save tasks, you can see it's right here. Okay, this Tweet Scraper demo. All right, now that I've saved it as a task, I want to actually run this scraper. So I'm going to click into it. And again, I'm going to hit start at the top, and I want to show you what this looks like inside of Apify. And we also need to run it again for Gumloop to be able to sync up. So this is the scraper now working in the background. Again, it's scraping Twitter. I think I put the results max at 25, and it's looking for the last 25 tweets that mention lemon squeezy, the phrase, or lemon squeezy, the account. So you can see it's pulling in the URL, it's pulling in the text and a bunch of information over here. So let's say if we can just pull up a random tweet here. Yeah, so, and this is from today. I've heard a few bad things about Lemon Squeezy recently. Okay, so you can see it's scraping Twitter and just looking for the keyword there. All right, now that I've run it, I can go into Apify and refresh a couple of things. So first you want to refresh the task. Okay, so I've already gotten this one, but this is the name of the saved task. Okay, so I called this tweet scraper demo, I believe. Okay, so when I refresh, I already have it here, but I can pull it from the drop down. Tweet scraper demo. And then importantly, the output fields. So when you refresh, now if I did not run it, it would be throwing me an error message here. So I can select my output fields over here, like the URL. And what is the other one actually called? We want to make sure we're getting the actual complaint, which is just the text, right? So we want the URL and we want the text, okay? So that's the output field. You'd think it would be full text, but it's just text, okay? So that's how we want to configure the Apify node in Gumloop. And the last option that you can put in the Apify input here is how many entries do you want to look at a time, right? So for the purposes of this video, I mean, I'll just put 15, but you can set this to whatever you want. And to make sure that this is actually working in Gumloop, we can just hit the pink run button, and it's going to run just the Apify scraper, and it's going to show us exactly what's happening in the sidebar here. So the UI is really nice over here in Gumloop. So you can see the Apify task tweet scraper demo completed successfully, and you can click in here so you can see all of the outputs. Okay, so it's going to output the text, which is actually the text of the tweet, and it's going to give us the corresponding URL. Okay, so the link to the actual tweet. So we know the Apify scraper is working. Now we're going to use an AI agent to categorize these tweets, but before we do that, we need to do a little text manipulation inside of Gumloop. So I'm going to add a node called the combine text node. And the reason we need to do this is because we're going to feed these two data points, the URL and the text, into the AI agent, but we want to combine them into one output that we can give the agent. So I'm going to use, again, this combine text node, and I'm going to drag the URL output from Apify to input 1 over here, and then the text output to input number 2, just like that. And then we just need to format this text. So there's a box down here, right? So how do we want to pass it on to our AI agent? So, and these inputs correspond with, the information that you're passing on down here. So I'm going to do the format of tweet. So what's the tweet? Okay. So that input is actually input 2. And then I'm just going to do comma and then URL. Okay. So we're going to pass the text of the tweet, meaning the tweet itself, and then a comma, and then the URL of that tweet to our AI categorizer. So I'm going to do URL : and then again, URL is dragging to input 1. So the input 1 corresponds to this over here, and I'm going to drag it just like that. All right, so the next thing that we're going to add is our first AI agent that's going to categorize basically the sentiment of these tweets. Okay, so let me save this right now. And if you want to, again, we can run this to see what's happening. So Apify is going to do the scraping again, and we're going to combine those two outputs into a single output that we can feed our first AI agent. So in the background, we can see that Apify did all of its work. And then so it's taking 15, remember we set our limit here to 15 tweets. So you can see we've got 15 different outputs. It's the tweet, okay, the comma, and then the URL. So that's what that node did over here, the combined text, it took two different pieces of information, the tweets, the text of the tweet itself and the URL, and combine them. So you can see when we do it in the next step, we're going to pass it to our AI filter. All right, so let's add our next node, which is going to be the categorizer, which you can see is one of these AI nodes. So let me drag the categorizer down here onto the canvas. And what I'm going to do is configure this first by dragging the combined text into the input, okay? So that's why we needed to combine the text in the previous step, because this is only accepting one input. And so the combined text combined those two pieces of data into one input. And so now we can pass it from the combined text to the categorizer. All right, so we're going to have this AI agent categorize these tweets, and I'm going to do it into 3 different buckets. You can really set this up however you want, but I just want to kind of show off Gumloop here because this is a really cool tool. So again, these tweets could be about anything. They could be about nothing, but for this, we're looking for the complaints, right? So that should be probably our first bucket. So I'm going to add a category here. I'm going to call it customer complaints. Okay, so that's the name of the first category. And you have the option of giving the AI a description of what you're looking for. So I have this on my clipboard here, and I'm going to say these are legitimate customer complaints, problems, or issues requiring attention. Okay, so that's the first category that this AI node is going to look for. So I'm going to add another category. I'm going to call it positive feedback. Again, we're not really using this in this example, but you could certainly use this maybe if you were collecting testimonials or for a different workflow. Again, I just want to show you the different options here. So this is the second category we're going to look for. And the description I'm going to give it on my clipboard here is positive comments, praise, or satisfaction with the product or the service. All right, I'm going to add one more category, and this is going to be just general discussion. Okay, so maybe it's not a positive feedback, it's not a complaint, it's just whatever. So the category description is neutral mentions or general conversation. Okay, so now I've got my first agent set up that's going to take in all of those tweets and URLs and basically do a sentiment analysis on which category those tweets fall into. All right, so we can test this again just by hitting the run button manually, and it's going to go out and do the same thing. It's going to scrape Twitter. It's going to combine the tweet text with the URL. It's going to feed all of them. I think we did 15 into our first AI agent here and have it output what the tweets are about. And you can see it happening right here. Most of them are general discussion, so we might not have a lot to play with in Slack, but here's a complaint over here. Yeah, the vast majority of these are, so good job, Lemon Squeezy. You can see there's a complaint here, but the point is the flow is working. So again, you can test your flow after every step just by hitting that run button. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add an AI filter because we don't want all of these tweets passing through. We only want the ones that are categorized as a complaint. Okay, so in my nodes, I'm going to hit the button here, and I am going to do a filter. I'm going to search for filter, and then I'm going to drag this AI filter onto the canvas over here. And we need 2 inputs here. The first thing is the value. So what is the actual content? Okay, so I'm going to grab the output of the combined text, which is the actual tweets, right, with the URL. So I'm going to drag that all the way down onto value. And the second input I need is filter by. Okay, so that is the output from the AI categorizer up here. So I'm going to drag this output into the filter. And then in the condition box, what are we filtering for? So I'm going to write customer complaint. Okay, and the model, by the way, you can add your own credentials to Gumloop, and meaning your own API keys for OpenAI, for Claude, for Google, and your credits are going to come down to basically nothing. So I'm going to use Claude 3.7 Sonnet, and it's really not going to cost me any credits because I've got my Anthropic key plugged into my settings. All right, so just to review this AI filter node here, again, we only want the values to pass through the rest of the automation if the tweet is identified as a complaint. So again, we're taking the actual tweet and we're taking the categorizer up here, and then we're going to output just the ones that are categorized as a complaint. All right, so I want to use another AI agent to summarize what the complaints are about, and I'm going to add that, but we're going to need a step before that as well. But let me just do the summarizer, okay? So I'm going to drag the AI summarizer. So again, this summarizes large bodies of text using AI. I'm going to select my model again as Claude 3.7 Sonnet. But it's not as simple as just dragging the output from the filter directly onto the canvas here. So I'm going to pass the results from the AI filter into a new AI agent, which is going to be an AI summarizer. But before that, I'm going to just need to take this text and join it as a list. So I'm going to put a join list items up here. This is just kind of the text manipulation you have to do in Gumloop. Otherwise, you're going to see some errors. So I'm going to drag this list output into this list input. And then I'm going to turn this on, this join new line. So instead of it being a horizontal line with the tweet and the text, it's going to, each one will be on its own line, as you can see over here. So I'm going to turn this join new line on just like that. All right, now I'm going to add that next AI agent, which is an AI summarizer. All right, so it's going to summarize for us to send it into our Slack channel, basically saying, hey, these are what all of the complaints are about. So it's like a natural language response that it's going to send into Slack. So it's going to summarize what all the issues are about. So I'm going to take this AI summarizer node. I'm going to take this joined text output, drag it into this text input. And then again, I'm going to choose my model here. Since I have my API key, I'm going to use Claude 3.7 Sonnet and just save that. Now, again, if we want to run this, and I always say you can test every step of the way, and you probably should. You know, these videos would be twice as long if I was doing that, but let's run it again at this point to see if we get our summary over here. So you can see right now it's doing the categorization. We've got a couple of customer complaints over here. All right, and you can see it successfully ran all the way up to the summarizer, which is the last step, and it's going to give us a final summarized text about what all of the issues are, and you can see the run is completed successfully, so we're on the right page right now. Now, before we can pass this information into Slack, we do need to do more text manipulation with Gumloop, which is kind of my biggest pet peeve with Gumloop, is how much you have to manipulate the lists and the single file inputs before you can actually get your results. So now we need to duplicate, use a duplicate node here. So let me search for duplicate, and I'm going to add this onto my canvas right over here. So we need this duplicate node because right now this summary is only outputting one summary, but we're going to have multiple complaints. So to match each complaint with a summary, we need to duplicate this summarizer output. So the first thing that I want to do for this duplicate node is I need my input, which is going to be the summary over here from the AI summarizer. So I'm going to drag that over there. And then the second input I need is the list size. So you can see the size of the new list is either based on the size of another list you provide or a size you specify. Well, in this case, it's going to be based on the size of the filtered output from the customer complaint node. I know it's a little complicated. Again, I'm hoping Gumloop can work with this to make it slightly less complicated without all of these lists. So I'm going to drag this filtered output from the AI filter, which is passing all of the customer complaints, right? So how many are in that list? And I'm going to drag it to the input here, which is the list size to match. So it's going to duplicate this summary for as many items we have in the filtered output of how many complaints we have. All right, before we can pass this into Slack, we need one more text manipulation node. So I'm going to search for combine text. So we need to combine a bunch of this output so that we can just feed it all into Slack. All right, so with this combined text node, this is going to dictate how our Slack message is formatted, right? So if I go back into Slack, I can see that we have a summary, okay? And then we have the tweets, right? So the summary is over here, which is the AI summary. And then we have the tweet, which includes the text of the tweet. Remember, we did this with the comma and then the URL. Right? So that's the formatting. So how do we get that formatting into Slack? That's where this combined text node comes into play over here. So the first input I need, which is right over here, is that summary, okay, that we duplicated many times. So I'm going to take the output of that duplicate node and drag it into the first input over here. Now, the second piece of information I need is input 2 over here, which is the actual tweet information. So I'm going to grab that from the AI filter. Okay, remember, this is filtering down the tweets. Okay, so the filtered output, I can drag that output onto input 2 over here. All right, now I need to actually build the formatting. Okay, so remember, in Slack, and you can do this however you want, but I had a summary, okay, that it's literally said the word summary : so I want to drag this value, which is input 1, okay, that we dragged from over here. And then on a new line, I don't think I wrote tweet. I think it's just the tweet itself. Or actually, I have tweet over here. All right, let me write tweet. So I'm going to write tweet. And then I'm going to put input 2 over here like that. All right, so this is how the actual Slack message will be formatted when we finally send this to Slack. So the last node that we need here is a Slack sender. Okay, so it's going to send us a message in Slack. So I'm going to search for that in the node library. You can see Slack message sender. I only need one of these inputs, like just the message. So what I'm going to do is take this combined text, which again is going to have summary with the AI summary, and then the tweet text, comma, with the URL. It's going to send that information as the message. And which channel am I using? Yeah, let's use this one, right? So obviously you have to have Slack connected to Gumloop through your credentials, obviously. Select the correct channel, and I think we look pretty good. So let me save that. All right, so let's test this. So this channel is new for this demo. It's completely empty. You can see I've invited Gumloop to join. FYI, you have to do that for Slack just by hitting / invite space, the @ sign, and then Gumloop. And then you click on that, and then it will invite Gumloop into the channel, just FYI, but I've already done that. So let's go back to the flow. All right, moment of truth. I'm gonna hit run. We didn't test the last couple of steps. I mean, I've done this before, but we did not test. So again, we're using Apify to scrape Twitter for mentions of the lemon squeezy handle or the phrase lemon squeezy. We're doing some text manipulation. We're using an AI agent to categorize which are the actual complaints. We are doing a little more text manipulation over here. I'm sorry, we have the AI filter. Then we're going to use AI to summarize the actual issues, much more text manipulation. And so it's saying it sent us 3 separate messages in Slack. So let's run over to Slack and see what we got here. All right, so so we've got the summary. Multiple users are reporting issue with the payment processing systems. Problems include failed checkouts, inability to process payments, and transactions appearing successful but not completing. One user mentioned considering alternatives despite preferring some of their features, yada, yada, yada. All right, and then we've got the tweet. So it does say tweet twice. That's why I didn't want it the first time, but that's okay. So we've got the tweet format, right? So it's going to say, so it's giving us the high level summary and then the tweets themselves. So Lemon Squeezy doesn't process test payments anymore. I can't test things. Amazing. I just hope live payments aren't affected again. So that's sarcasm, I think. that the AI picked up on. I think this is more of the tweet, and here's the URL that we can check. Yeah, so it's pretty incredible that this was sarcasm at the top here, and the AI was able to pick up on the sarcasm there. And by the way, this was from today, 3 hours ago. FYI, lemon squeezy, you might want to get in here and respond to this customer. This is why this automation is so valuable. It can just send these notifications to your team inside of Slack. All right, so that's the Twitter URL over there. Now we've got a summary over here. So it's kind of repeating the summary, which I'm sure we could tweak. But then it gives us the tweet. So only problem is lacking some things that I liked about Lemon Squeezy. However, the most important thing is having a working URL. So this might actually be about a different service. Oh, maybe not. I don't know. Okay, so this is kind of comparing Polar to Lemon Squeezy. So it generally got it right. Yeah, so they're talking about switching from Lemon Squeezy to something called Polar. So there is some discussion going on here. It didn't exactly nail this 100%, because when it's saying it's lacking some of the things, it's actually talking about Polar, not Lemon Squeezy, but still, this is something good to be notified of as well. And then the third tweet, again, we could tweak this summary because we're getting the same summary 3 times, which is okay. And then, so this tweet is unique. So I think what this is, it's someone's tweeting somebody about they tried to buy their product, but the Lemon Squeezy integration failed. So if we go to this URL, yeah, so this person is trying to buy this person's product, but was not able to because of Lemon Squeezy. So again, that's something that the Lemon Squeezy team might want to be aware of. All right, so overall, we could probably tweak it to be a little better, especially with the summary. But you can see how valuable this is once you set it up. And actually, let me mention this before we wrap this up, is how do you trigger this? And, how often should you run this? Because right now, we don't have a trigger, but we can do a time trigger. Let's see so you're going to go into the node library, go into triggers, down here. So we can schedule this. So let me click this. And I love how you can just use natural language here. So I can say every morning at 9 a.m. So I'm going to just use natural language to tell Gumloop how often I want this to run. So I'm saying running at 9 a.m. Eastern time, I can create a time trigger. And now it's going to create this. And in Gumloop, it'll probably put there's the trigger up there. So now this is running. It's running every day at 9 a.m. It can send your customer service team Slack notifications that people are having complaints about your company on Twitter, so your team can get in there and fix the issues. So this was a longer build. Again, there's a lot of text manipulation that we had to do, but this is something, once you set it up once, you can tweak it, but it's really running every day in the background on autopilot. So I hope you like this build. If you want to see me build something else, give me some ideas in the comments. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.